Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I am Joe Rockey here with Father Boniface. And Father, as I just mentioned to you, this is our 401st episode. And we have obviously talked about a great deal of things throughout the years here, all of which being essentially boiled down to the relationships that you have with yourself, the relationships you share with others, all underneath the relationship that you have with God. And we do this in conjunction as we're starting Lent here, this being the first episode that will release during Lent. And one of the most important elements of having the relationship with God is having a prayer life, as well as actively practicing the virtues in an ultimate goal of becoming holy. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into there, and I'm not trying to gloss it over as that's easy by any stretch. But I want to focus on one of the elements that goes in hand with making 400 episodes, which is when we started this, at least from my standpoint, I had an idea of what it could be like and what a general episode could be like, not let alone a series, but what a general episode could be look like. But as we got going and better, a couple of things happened with us. We got a little bit better situation. We figured out our schedules better. We figured out technology better on our side. But most importantly, we just kept doing it. We allowed there to be space of, you know what, we should do this better next time. It's not the end of the world here. We're not throwing that episode out, but we're just going to do better next time. And ultimately, if you kind of boil that into one word, it's determination, could be an applicable term. But I think it was more we just wanted to keep going and keep trying because there was this belief and hope that something great could come out of it. And oh, by the way, it has. The amount of people we're reaching out to is phenomenal. And I wanted to go to this because I think there is a lot of analogies to a prayer life where you might not know what it's going to look like at the end of the road. You might not know even how to do it right. But in some degrees, just keep trying. And as long as you have an open desire to be better, it kind of worked itself out. So I know that you have wrote many books, many thick books about being prayer. Um, and I wanted to use this as the starting part as far as diving into it, particularly as we're here in our first episode of Lent.
Nice. So I appreciate the point that you made, first of all, Joe, that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. The journey to 401 episodes begins with one episode. And we can expect maybe the analogy that you made, the journey to 400 episodes begins with one episode, is even more applicable because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, and pretty much we know how to make a step at the beginning. But unlike making steps, making podcasts, we didn't know how to make a podcast at the beginning. And prayer is something more like that, as you just said, and I'm just reinforcing. We don't know what we're doing at the beginning. We do something, and then we learn along the way. The feedback loop, that we have in prayer and continual learning from other sources is really vital. Now, on the other hand, I could say prayer is a relationship. We do know how to do relationships. We're conceived into a relationship. We grow in relationships. We learn to make all of that more explicit as we grow up, from the point that we are an infant in arms, and relationship and ourselves are so intertwined, we hardly know how to distinguish that. As we become a little bit more independent, then we're more actively choosing those relationships. But we are, as human beings, relationship experts as a starting point. Now, we become more relationship experts as we invest more time in it and as we try to learn from our mistakes and understand the hearts of others. And so at the human level, we start with a lot and we keep growing in that. And that flows over naturally into the divine level. Prayer is our relationship with God. I think that's a simple and effective way to define it. Prayer is our relationship with God. And so, how do I grow in prayer? How do I grow in my relationship with God? Well, how do I grow in any relationship? And then we're back to where we started from. I know how to grow in human relationships. I take time. I share meaningful things I grow in trust, which includes acts of dependence, acts of trust. I'm going to trust you to show up, to do what you say you're going to do, and that when you tell me something, you're telling me the truth. And so through acts of trust, we grow in trust. And likewise, when I share with you something that could hurt me or could come back to me, something vulnerable, I see how you receive that. And if you receive that well and with love in an affirming way, then I trust to reveal a little more, share a little more. And so we
Well, can we
grow.
dive into that active trust part for a minute? Because part of that implicitly has expectations. So, you think of the traditional middle school activity. I'm going to do a trust fall where I'm just going to fall blindly backward. The expectation is that you're going to catch me. And I think that one of the major mistakes people have is they have incorrect expectations for what trusting in God actually means. So, could we hit a minute just hitting that ground rule?
Yeah, what does trusting in God mean? We could probably start with a lot of ways that we trust Him without realizing we're trusting Him. Like probably nobody's worried about gravity no longer working, and you've based your day on the idea that God's laws are trustworthy and we can count on them to continue working. Um, we also learn to trust in His mercy, that when we fail, that He will always have mercy on us. That's an area that we grow in trust. Um, we trust in His love and His presence, and it's one of those things that we lean into it as we believe that He will be there. We act as if He is there, and then we find ways of discovering that, in fact, He is there for us when we open our hearts to Him in prayer. Um, we we trust in His capacity to work all things to the good. It's part of what gives hope. And again, we build on some of these things without knowing that we're building on some of these things. Our capacity to get up, to start over, to try something new, to you know, a lot of that is built on a hope that if it's not hope in God, it's kind of irrational. Why would we ever think that this is going to work out? Well, at some level, we hope in God. We can make that hope more explicit, and we can make our trust in Him more explicit. That would be the step that we would take.
So, in terms of what you should expect in return from God, I think that would be an important thing to hit there, because you going back to the original analogy of this episode, I had no idea what to expect our content would look like over 400 episodes, the reach that we would have. It was a hope that we'd make a difference in people's lives, but no real expectations as far as how, when, or what it would look like. And when we're looking at those expectations we have with the trust in God, what should they be?
Yeah, well, I like what you said about the podcast. We hoped to make people's lives better, and and that's the thing that we can also trust in God for, is His goodness. So He's not going to play games with us. He's not going to be good one minute and bad the next. He's not going to be uh, loving one minute and angry the next. He is consistent. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so part of our expectation is just that He's going to work all things to the good for those who love Him. So we can trust that that's going to move in that direction. Now, we don't always know what the good looks like, and sometimes it surprises us. We find ourselves often in places, similar to what you said about the podcast. We didn't know exactly how we would reach people, but nor what the good would look like in that context. Um, and so we set out with hope, confidence, expectation, but we also, are a little bit open-handed about the whole thing. I don't need to make it say, it doesn't need to look like this. It just needs to look good. It needs to look better than we are now. It needs to look like a love. Again, the good moves along the spectrum of love, and so that's that's the path that we're working on, and and then it's part of the joy of it. It's one of the ways that we can lean into the invitation to be childlike. Does a child know what the presents are going to look like at Christmas? No, he expects there are going to be presents and they're going to be good. He's not going to get a rattlesnake in one of the boxes. He's not going to, end up with a slime or something like that, unless he likes slime. Sometimes that happens. But, there's an expectation of goodness, but also the delight of surprise and a willingness to be surprised by how things grow.
Yeah, and this thought came to me as you were saying that, and this might be an incorrect analogy, but I was just reading the beginning of Matthew in preparation for Lent. I was going to go through the entire Gospel of Matthew, and it starts with the genealogy, all of the, he was the father of him, he was the father of him, and there's a ton of people in there, and it made me think about what what these people would have lived through specifically basically the journey of the Old Testament until here. And again, this is the thought I'd taken from a surface level, but I think that it flows throughout the Bible into the New Testament as well, which is the earlier you are in the Bible overall, it seems like the more hands-on God was with direct outcomes, literally making Adam, with Moses, taking you out of Egypt, with Joshua, winning wars for you. And then we start to see a separation where, all right, we let the Babylonian exile happen. We let bad things start happening. Like, I gave you guys everything, and now it's kind of on you. And then you can make the argument that the fulfillment of Jesus is, I'm telling you all what to do, and I'm still letting you kill me. Like I could have stopped all this in a moment. Everything that you guys wanted in terms of being a ruling, powerful dictator, I could have done that instantly, but I didn't. So in a way, God is showing us a relationship almost in the same way that parents do with children. In the beginning, we're very hands-on, taking care of stuff, making sure you actually do the right thing. But as time progresses, you need to get it together and it's on you. So the expectation that, you know what, everything's bad right now. Why doesn't God just throw out a couple of plagues and, like reset the game? You just said that, well, there's a reason that isn't going to happen. And I think that that's part of what my thought process is as far as what is the realistic expectation of prayer life will give you. And again, tell me if that analogy is completely wrong, but just thinking about a little bit deeper about, again, the genealogy of these are the people who lived this, like that was kind of what their experience was. I might be condensing or paraphrasing a little bit too much for an analogy, but in general, I think that's the core concept.
Well, there's a lot of stuff there, I guess. What what we see certainly in looking through the genealogy of Jesus, and of course there are two genealogies, one in Matthew's gospel that starts with Abraham, but one in Luke's gospel that starts with Adam or goes back to Adam. And in any event, the succession of people across generations who tried to one degree or another to live in relationship with God certainly does teach us a great deal. The most important thing, perhaps, is that they tried to live in relationship with God, and that was shaped by certain covenants along the way. And that would be another way to look at the expectations. When God cut a covenant with Noah, he had certain promises and certain expectations of Noah. That's part of the covenant relationship. And a covenant makes kin. So a covenant makes us family, like marriage. But then when he cut a covenant with Abram, that was a different set of expectations. And then eventually when he cut the new and everlasting covenant with Jesus, and so with us, that's another set of expectations. And With Noah, he promised he would never wipe out the world again. That was part of God's promise. So that could be part of our expectation. That would be a way of saying what I said earlier. We probably haven't been anxious that gravity is going to go away. Well, we probably haven't been anxious that the world's just going to be wiped out either. As much as things rain, and sometimes we joke, oh, it's a second flood, everything's going to wash away. But we don't really fear that. God is going to clean, to wipe the earth clean again. And that's part of that covenant with Noah and part of our expectations. But we also believe that he's not going to abandon his people. He's going to fulfill his promise to make Abraham a blessing to all nations. And then, also that he brings forth in Jesus a new and everlasting covenant. And he's not going to revoke that covenant. And that's a covenant that's cut in his blood. So he makes himself the sacrifice that guarantees that covenant. As surely as Jesus died on the cross, God will keep up that covenant with us. So those covenants are really what mark the relationships of those individuals. When you look at the actual individuals in the genealogy, they're all over the place. I mean, there's good, bad, and indifferent in there. We certainly don't want to look to all of them as examples, since there's incest, adultery, fratricide, and anyway, there's some messy things going on in those genealogies. But they're all part of that covenant that God remains faithful to, and he kept bringing about from generation to generation. And so we can have confidence he will bring that about with us as well.
And I think that's kind of a build out of one of the things you said in the last couple of episodes, and that everything can be turned to the good. And a theme that we said really in December a lot was your actions have impact moving forward more so than you. It might not seem like a big deal to just, wave or be nice to someone down the road, but there are impacts that not just build upon within our own souls and our own selves, but ripple effect everyone else. And I think that again, I didn't know I was going down this genealogy conversation, but I think that that's one of the things to take in mind when we're looking into the unknown of a new practice or a new habit. We might not know what exactly taking 10 minutes of our day to go into daily prayer will actually mean, what it will look like. And having an expectation, like in a business context, well, if I hire 2 more salespeople, our profit should grow by X percentage. Well, that's not really how prayer works. But there is a net tangible increase that is there. Do you know exactly what it's going to look like? Are you able to quantify and measure it? Sometimes not. But things start to become softer and easier. You're able to communicate and have better connections with other people. Is it directly because you're spending 10 minutes a day thinking about those relationships, thinking about your relationship with God? Probably. There's pretty good indication, and that would be a direct correlation there. But is there a way to ever measure that and concrete it like you would with a scientific experiment, like a lever or a pulley makes it easier to lift things than doing a squat? No. But it's all things that add up. So, Father, as we conclude this episode, first off, I hope I didn't go in too many directions, and we hope the thing to be concise. I want to give you a chance to give the final word here today.
Yeah, well, I think the basic invitation, coming back to the beginning as we start the Lenten season, is start somewhere. Don't wait for the perfect. Know that it only grows step by step. It's going to be messy. Hopefully, one of the words about God's promises is helpful for you. That his mercy, his goodness, his faithfulness, his love for us that is demonstrated in the blood of Jesus, his commitment to us, and then the assurance he wants this relationship actually infinitely more than we do. And he's invested, he's initiated, he's with us. And so just to take that 10 minutes a day, like you said, or 15 minutes, or maybe whatever we're doing, just a little bit more attention or a few more minutes added on, makes a big difference. Set into Lent with that commitment and see how things are different when you come out of Lent. Like you said, it's not a quantitative measure, But I think we can pick up on a qualitative measure. We can say things are better now. How exactly? When did they become that way? What did things are better now? I think that's worth aiming at.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we thank all of you for having been with us, whether you've been in the podcast world with us here for the last couple or since the very first one. We thank you all for being with us. And we also thank you for sharing with us as well, because again, we are growing like crazy. It's phenomenal, the year over year growth that we are seeing. And it's all because of you guys helping us with word of mouth. So thank you all very much. And we will be with you again next week.